He slammed the file down so hard the stapler bounced. "I don't care about protocol. Clear your damn desk." Every head in the room snapped up. Phones stopped mid-ring. I watched from 2 rows over, fingers frozen above my keyboard, mouse still in my hand. Just 30 seconds earlier, Todd had been calmly explaining that the discrepancy in the warehouse intake was already flagged. An outdated barcode miscategorized under inbound priority, logged, noted, pending correction. Nothing dangerous. Nothing that couldn't wait till EOD. But the new guy, Mr. MBA with his Patagonia vest and a caffeine complex, was on one of his power kicks again. COO for 8 weeks and already running the place like he was Moses descending from the mountaintop, hurling stone tablets at anyone who dared exhale wrong. The whole floor was silent. You could hear the HVAC groaning overhead. Todd didn't argue. That's the thing. 14 years here, and he just nodded. That kind of nod that wasn't submission, but something colder, something final. He gathered his things slowly, didn't even look up when 2 security guards emerged from nowhere, flanking his cubicle like he'd just been caught stuffing laptops in a duffel bag. But then, this is what stayed with me, he stopped at his terminal. Just a pause. Barely 2 seconds. His fingers moved like he was typing out a grocery list, eyes blank. 1 line of code, entered so smoothly it felt like déjà vu. And then he was gone. No box, no scene, just a man swallowed by silence. Hey, quick pause while we're here. If you're listening and find stories like this worth your time, it'd mean the world if you hit the like button and subscribed. 97% of people watch without subscribing, and every single one really helps our team keep these coming. All right, back to it. After Todd left, no one said a word. Not even Karen from HR, who usually finds some way to chirp a morale-boosting one-liner when someone's walked out. Not today. People just went back to their screens, pretending to work, pretending they hadn't just witnessed something rupture in real time. By 4:17 p.m., the Slack channels were buzzing. No one said his name outright, but you could feel it. The temperature had changed. Then Rick from Ops muttered, "Did anyone else see what he typed before he left?" And suddenly, we were all listening again. Because here's what half the company forgot, and the other half never knew. Todd wasn't just some desk jockey. He was the system. Every automation, every back-end patch that kept our Frankenstein logistics software duct-taped to life. Todd built it, or at least maintained the mess, when no one else could understand it. He'd been here since we were still using thermal printers for package labels and counting pallets by flashlight when the power cut. Every vendor integration, every inventory demon, his fingerprints were buried deep. And now, he was gone. Nobody knew yet, but we'd all just watched a man quietly flip a kill switch. Not out of rage, out of design. Like he had anticipated this moment years ago. Maybe even built it into the bones of the system, just in case. But that realization wouldn't hit until Monday. And by then, it'd be too damn late. The office was eerily quiet that Friday evening. Even after Todd was gone, people lingered. Nobody wanted to be the first to leave. Like the walls themselves were waiting for something to give. But nothing did. Not yet. The lights dimmed automatically at 6, and one by one, we shuffled out under the dull hum of fluorescence, each pretending this was just another week wrapping up. By Saturday morning, the emails started. A blast from the new COO, his 4th vision update in as many weeks. titled "Cutting the Fat, Efficiency in Motion." He wrote like a man who had watched one too many TED Talks at double speed. He called Todd's termination a strategic pivot and praised the team for leaning in. It made my stomach turn. He even posted some over-edited selfie on the company's LinkedIn page, smiling with our branding behind him, captioned, "Streamlining inefficiencies, moving fast. Proud of this team." I showed it to my husband over breakfast and he nearly choked on his eggs. Meanwhile, the back-end team was already on edge. Saturday's inventory ping scripts were lagging. Nothing huge, just a few hiccups, delays in routine crawlers that usually ran smoother than butter. The kind of stuff Todd would catch before the logs even time-stamped it. But now, nobody was sure whose job that was anymore. Nobody wanted to touch anything they didn't understand. By Saturday night, I got a message from Elena in procurement. "We're seeing duplicates in the order batching. You hearing anything?" I wasn't, but I should have been. Something was off. Everyone could feel it, like a clock ticking in a locked room. Sunday morning, IT requested deeper access to the codebase. Todd had always maintained a unique permissions tier, legacy-rooted, the kind you don't touch without gloves. It was buried under the old Unix shell, predating the current CTO. But the COO shot them down hard. "Why would I give outsiders root access? Just fix it," he barked during a call one of the interns live-tweeted and then deleted. Word spread fast. And Todd? He didn't take a thing. Not a file, not a drive, not even his souvenir coffee mug with the binary joke printed on it. IT confirmed 0 downloads, no logouts, no credential fails. He just disappeared. But that's what rattled people most. No angry goodbye email, no inbox bomb, just pure surgical absence. Like he'd removed himself from the equation with the precision of someone who had planned it down to the keystroke. That quiet kind of exit. That wasn't peace. That was a prelude. Late Sunday, I heard from Kevin, the security guy on duty when Todd left. He texted me a screenshot of a message he'd sent to Todd that afternoon. "Man, that was brutal. You okay?" No reply. Just the little "delivered" checkmark. Operations technically still ran, no crashes, nothing on fire. But people were restless. Packages weren't syncing correctly. Fulfillment flags were popping on old orders we'd already closed. And someone noticed the warehouse automation dashboard wasn't updating stats after the usual cycle. It still showed Friday's last known sync, 3:13 p.m., 1 minute before the blowup. By the time Sunday night crept in, I wasn't the only one who couldn't sleep. You could feel it on Slack, lurkers in every channel, reading, not typing, waiting, holding their breath. Because whatever Todd had done, it wasn't loud, but it was coming. By 7:03 a.m. on Monday, the warehouse ops terminal just stopped. Not crashed, not frozen, just locked mid-sync like someone had hit pause on the entire damn backbone of the company. Jess in inventory called me from the floor, panicked whisper like she was reporting a crime. "It won't load past Friday. The pallet manifest is stuck on 003472. That was Friday." I refreshed my terminal. Same thing. The dashboard screen still displayed the same tracking graph Todd left it on. 3 minutes later, at 7:06, the fulfillment queue buckled. Every outbound order sat blinking in the queue, unassigned. The pick-pack ship flow, which usually updated every 5 seconds, stalled like molasses in a January drainpipe. Auto-routing scripts tried to pick new batches, then looped right back to the start. Elena pinged me. "Is there a network issue?" I typed out, "Maybe," then deleted it. Because no, this wasn't network. This was system. At 7:08 a.m., I watched in real time as procurement logs rerouted into a recursive loop. Orders were triggering purchase orders, which triggered more inventory requests, which re-triggered the original order. A digital Ouroboros, eating its own tail. The monitors on the procurement floor turned red. The interns started crying. Then came 7:12. I'll never forget that time. Because at 7:12 a.m., the inventory tracker, Todd's Frankenstein legacy script, tied into the warehouse RFID scanners, recalculated every single SKU in the system to 0. 0. 4 warehouses, 12 distribution centers, 32 partner nodes, gone. On paper, we didn't exist anymore. According to the system, we had the same amount of product as a church bake sale in a tornado. The COO, of course, didn't show up until 8:04, Starbucks in hand, grinning like he'd just benched 250. But by the time he hit the floor, the entire ops team looked like they'd been trapped in a burning elevator all morning. He asked for a status update. No one answered. He asked again, slower. Still nothing. Finally, someone from IT, Noah, I think, stood up and said, "We've isolated the failure to a core automation process. We're trying to run a restore now." "Good," he snapped. "Then do it. Restart the damn thing." So they tried. I was there. They tried to run the override protocol. The screen blinked, then displayed one line, plain white monospace text against a black background. "Enter legacy credential, SYS root P silence." The IT lead stared at it like it was a riddle from a dream he couldn't quite remember. "That's old. Like, really old. We haven't touched that credential string in years." The COO leaned over his shoulder. "Then bypass it?" Noah shook his head. "You can't. It's hard-coded, part of the original resiliency framework, tied to a biometric profile and root credential pair, Todd's profile." "What do you mean, Todd's?" the COO snapped. "I mean the system thinks Todd is the only person authorized to restart this module. Without his login and biometric key, it's locked down." That's when the smug started to melt. The blood left his face and pooled somewhere in his overpriced loafers. "You're telling me the guy we fired is the only one who can fix this?" No one answered. That was the moment it dawned on everyone. Todd hadn't made a mistake. He'd made a choice, and whatever he'd typed before walking out wasn't an accident. It was a door slamming shut behind him, a door none of us had the keys to. By noon, a black Escalade pulled up out front, and a man in a slate-gray blazer stepped out, suitcase in hand, sunglasses still on inside the building. He didn't shake hands, didn't introduce himself, just walked straight to the terminal like someone arriving to inspect a plane crash they already knew the cause of. He was the kind of man who always carried his own hotspot and had a laptop with more ports than our entire IT budget. He popped it open, jacked into the legacy terminal with an adapter I'm not even sure exists on the market anymore, and typed for maybe 30 seconds. Then he stopped, sat back, and laughed. Not a chuckle. A deep, full-bodied, "What the hell did you think was gonna happen?" laugh. It echoed through the ops floor like a grenade in a library. The COO was right behind him, all puffed up chest and fake confidence, already trying to project dominance. "What's so funny?" he demanded. The consultant didn't look at him. He just kept scanning the screen, eyes flicking line by line through the frozen logs and framework. You fired your root integrator? He asked, deadpan. Seriously? That's irrelevant, the COO snapped, voice tight. We're dealing with what appears to be sabotage. No, the consultant cut in sharply. No sabotage. This is clean, surgical, deliberate, but not malicious. This was part of the original resiliency protocol. You'd know that if you'd bothered to read the SOPs. He reached into his bag, pulled out a manila folder thicker than my entire onboarding packet, and dropped it on the table like it was a weapon. On top was a faded printout labeled Fail-Safe Mode, Rev 2.4, dated April 9th, 2013. The consultant flipped it open, tapped the first page with one finger. This clause here, fail-safe engagement triggers terminal lockout, requiring SYS root P authentication. You see that? The COO leaned over, squinting like the words might vanish if he looked too closely. So, the consultant turned the page. And here, this is the authorization section. Look at the signature line. Everyone leaned in, and there it was, inked in blue, slightly smudged but unmistakable. Todd M. Halverson, Lead Systems Integrator. Our Todd. The same man the COO had screamed at in front of 50 people. The same man who calmly walked out after 14 years without taking so much as a stapler. The same man who, apparently, built a nuclear-grade safety harness into our system and never once bragged about it. You should be thanking him, the consultant muttered, scanning another page. This wasn't a bomb, it was a break. A hard stop, triggered only under specific internal inconsistencies, like, say, mass procedural changes without full-stack validation. You probably tripped it by accident. The fact that it's engaged means your recent updates violated system integrity. Which can be reversed, the COO said, but it sounded more like a question than a statement. The consultant looked up for the first time, one brow raised. Sure, in about 6 to 8 weeks, maybe longer, you'll need to rebuild the framework from scratch or acquire SYS root P authorization. And where do we get that? The consultant shrugged, like it wasn't his problem. From Todd. He built it. He's the only one who can reset it. The room went still. Someone at the back let out a slow breath. And just like that, the balance of power shifted, completely, quietly, and unmistakably, into the hands of the one person who wasn't even in the building. Tuesday morning, the CEO's private jet touched down 6 hours ahead of schedule. He was supposed to be in Lake Tahoe till Friday, off-grid with his second wife and some brand-name therapist. But word had reached him before he even finished his morning wheatgrass shot. By 9 a.m. sharp, he was on Zoom in his home office, hair still wet from a rushed shower, shirt buttoned wrong. And when the screen filled with board members, some in office, some calling from Europe, the mood wasn't tense. It was post-mortem. 3 major clients were already affected by the outage. One of them, a medical equipment distributor, had pulled their Q4 renewal entirely. Another emailed a scathing chain citing breach of SLA and irrecoverable reputational risk. That one hit hard. Our Q4 forecasts were built around them. Everything else was padding. And now, that padding was gasoline. The COO sat in the corner of the conference room, visibly sweating through his powder blue button-up. He tried to sound composed. We're handling the situation. It was a credentials failure linked to deprecated user controls. We're initiating a workaround. The consultant, patched in from his hotel room with a glass of something amber on his desk, didn't even let him finish. No, you're not, he said flatly. This isn't a permissions failure. It's a triggered protocol. The system did exactly what it was designed to do. It shut itself down to prevent further corruption. Restart isn't possible without the SYS Root P credential, which no one here has. The legal advisor, Marcia Lynn, our internal counsel with a voice like a guillotine, stepped in. To clarify, she said, turning to the CEO, that credential isn't just a password. It's a multi-factor authentication tethered to both the employee credential and a biometric key registered solely to Mr. Halverson. That profile was terminated on Friday. So reauthorize it, the CEO snapped. We can't, Marcia replied calmly. Under our own security compliance protocols, that profile is now classified as expired and locked. Reactivation would require employment reinstatement, which... She opened a second window on her screen, sharing it with the board. Violates Clause 8B of the severance agreement? The document blinked into view, a standard boilerplate contract, except for one new paragraph, highlighted in yellow. Clause 8B, rehire limitation. In the event of involuntary termination, the employee may not be re-employed or contracted in any capacity within a 6-month period without written approval from the former employee and, Chaltorn sign-off from the HR department's Risk Oversight Division. Every head on the call turned toward the COO. He looked like he'd been hit with a defibrillator. That's a formality, he stammered. We can override that. No, Marcia replied, as gentle as an executioner. That clause was added last year during the NDA policy updates. Standard compliance now? It's legally binding. The COO's voice cracked. There has to be a way to bypass. There isn't, the consultant said, sipping his drink like it was popcorn. You fired the one guy who knew where the system's spine lived, then tried to patch it with duct tape and ego. The silence that followed was long, awkward, heavy. Then the CEO finally spoke, voice low and even. Find Halverson? And just like that, the game board shifted again. Not toward the COO, not toward IT, not even toward legal, but toward a man who, 3 days earlier, walked out of this building without looking back. And now, he held the one credential no one else could fake. The message came in at 9:43 p.m., sent through Signal, no subject line. Just a single, nervous paragraph from a junior analyst named Aisha. The kind of quiet brain you overlook until everything's broken and only she remembers where the fuse box lives. If you're seeing this, I know you wrote the SWIS Root P lockout protocol. We're stuck. I'm sorry for what happened. They're all freaking out. The consultant's giving them hell. Legal's in full scramble mode. I don't know if you care, but I thought you should know. They need you. It sat in Todd's inbox for 26 minutes before he responded. And when he did, the reply was exactly 4 sentences long. It's not personal. I built it to be safe. It failed safe, just like it was supposed to. And I made sure it could only be fixed the right way. No anger, no gloating, no passive-aggressive, should have thought of that. Just architecture, just logic. Todd's style, pure, stripped-down intent. The same tone he used when explaining why we couldn't delete a batch script during a network migration. Not because it was sentimental, but because it mattered. Aisha didn't respond right away. I imagine she just stared at the message, maybe reread it twice, maybe more. Then, against every legal protocol drilled into us since onboarding, she took a screenshot and sent it to internal legal with a one-line note. He responded, read this. 10 minutes later, Marcia Lynn had it in her inbox. Another 15, and the CEO did too. And just like that, the conversation shifted. The tone changed. You could feel it even through email headers. People who'd spent the weekend calling Todd dead weight were now calling him the systems architect. The term mission critical got thrown around like it was candy at a parade. Even the COO, who'd spent the entire day pacing the C-suite and muttering about legal workarounds, went silent. He stopped taking calls, stopped barking orders, just shut his office door and stayed there. And while all that happened, while legal built contingency plans and PR drafted client damage control, Todd was gone. Not hiding, not posturing, just unavailable. Living. The system wasn't down because he broke it. It was down because it had finally followed the rules he wrote over a decade ago. Rules no one respected. Until now. Wednesday morning, the COO made his move. It started with a back-channel email to Todd's old personal address, the one HR had archived 2 days ago. The message was short, stiffly worded, trying too hard to sound casual. Hey, no hard feelings. We could use a hand. Let's talk. The reply never came, because it never reached him. HR flagged it instantly, routed it to legal, and issued a formal internal warning. Per the severance clause and current legal exposure, any direct communication from the COO to the former employee was explicitly prohibited. The irony? The man who screamed, "I don't care about protocol," was now buried under the weight of a dozen of them. By noon, the CEO stepped in. He didn't email. He called, no assistant, no delay, just a direct line, one-on-one. "Todd," he said, voice even, calm, but stripped of the usual bravado. "Name your rate. We need you." There was a pause on Todd's end, long enough to register. Then finally, "I'm not coming back, but I'll fix it. Under contract." Terms were simple. Todd laid them out like a list he'd been quietly refining since the moment he walked out. Triple his previous rate, prepaid, non-refundable, no on-site visits, all remote access on his machines. Communication through one point of contact only, Aisha, the junior analyst. And the final detail? That was the one that made legal blink. An amendment tucked at the bottom of the contract draft, under retention of framework rights. In the event of early termination, all non-exclusive intellectual property associated with the resiliency framework, including proprietary scripts, architecture, and protocol logic, shall revert to Halverson LLC for unrestricted future use and licensing. Translation: if they fired him again, he kept the blueprint and could sell it. The CEO asked legal if it was risky. Marcia responded with one sentence. "It's not risky, it's generous." He could have demanded exclusive rights and walked. The board approved the contract within the hour. Payment cleared before 4 p.m. Aisha received a quiet notification granting Todd encrypted access. No fanfare, no welcome party, just a blinking green terminal waiting for his key. And somewhere in a quiet apartment across town, Todd logged in, not to reclaim his job, but to reclaim control. At exactly 6:00 a.m. Thursday, the terminal lit up. No sirens, no company-wide announcement. Just a low-level system heartbeat pinging back to life under Todd's steady hand. From his small apartment, 3 monitors stacked in vertical array, he initiated the first stage of the rollback script. Nothing flashy, no fireworks, just line after line of green text cascading down the screen like rain easing after a storm. By 6:17, inventory began to sync. RFID trackers reconnected, SKUs repopulated. The zeros that had haunted the warehouse display screens flickered, stuttered, then snapped back into legible stock counts. Not just accurate, but better. Todd had silently embedded a patch into the framework to reprioritize flagged items based on demand forecasting. The system didn't just wake up, it woke up smarter. By 6:44, the logistics queue was fully cleared. Orders that had been frozen in limbo now rushed through the system with surgical precision. Drivers received new routing instructions. The pick-pack floor buzzed back to life. The line supervisors, who had spent 3 days sleepwalking through chaos, began to breathe again. And Todd? He didn't show up, never logged into Slack, never turned his camera on. He just sat in his flannel pajama pants at his desk, sipping black coffee with a cracked "coffee because murder is illegal" mug, watching the logs scroll across his screen like a silent confession, a system gasping back to life because someone, finally, followed the rules he wrote years ago. Back at HQ, the COO's office remained locked. No sign of him since Wednesday evening. Theories flew. Some said he was benched by the board. Others claimed legal had cordoned off access to his devices. By noon, the only thing left of him was his nameplate, still bolted to the glass door. The board, meanwhile, made their move. They convened a private session, no minutes shared, and quietly enacted the consultant's resignation clause. It had one new stipulation. Effective immediately, all future C-suite hires required pre-implementation infrastructure briefings and clearance by systems compliance. Translation? No more hotshots without understanding how the machine actually runs. Peace returned, but it didn't look like the old peace. It was quieter, leaner, smarter. Aisha was quietly promoted to systems liaison, reporting directly to the CEO, and every terminal now included a footer note, embedded in the codebase. System integrity maintained under resiliency protocol, Rev 2.4 Todd's work, buried for years in legacy systems and overlooked documentation, was now doctrine. And for the first time in days, nothing broke, nothing crashed. Just stability, humming in the background, restored on the terms of the man they tried to erase. By Friday morning, the glass nameplate was gone. No announcement, no goodbye email, just an HR memo sent at 6:12 a.m. that read, "Effective immediately, COO Bradley M. Whitmore is no longer with the company." No further detail, not even a temporary replacement named. The office door was already unbolted, his desk wiped clean. Someone boxed up his Think Bigger framed poster and left it leaning by the freight elevator. At 8:03 a.m., Todd's bank pinged with a wire confirmation. $184,000 was received from Northline Logistics, vendor disbursement account. No note, just a transaction. He didn't celebrate. No champagne, no smug post. Just another black coffee, same chipped mug, and a silent system waiting. At 8:16 a.m., he leaned back, cracked his knuckles, and typed one final command into the terminal. Unlock Swiss route. P. The terminal accepted it immediately. No delay, no hesitation. Like the system had been holding its breath for a week and finally exhaled. All auxiliary services resumed. Error logs cleared. Background routines restarted in perfect sync. The entire architecture hummed like it had just been reassembled cell by cell, every piece finally remembering what it was supposed to do. In the boardroom, the consultant closed his laptop. He didn't say much, just one line, dropped like a pin in an echo chamber. Next time, Maybe ask what protocol means before you scream it across the floor. Nobody replied because they all knew. And somewhere across town, Todd sat alone at his desk, watching the logs scroll by like a heartbeat resuming rhythm. No vindictive grin, no gloating email, just the quiet satisfaction of a job done right, on his terms. He closed his laptop, looked out the window, and murmured to no one. I wasn't angry. I was trained. And he fired the one guy who knew where the real reset button lived.